Good afternoon, Hutton. We've made it to the conclusion of
We're
our
here.
week with
We're here.
a big-time show, with big-time guests across the show, so I'm pumped.
It's a big-time show for Don't At Me with Dan Dakich
Yes, it was.
earlier this morning. A great chat with Charles Barkley. Chad, I know that last night, NBA Finals, Game 1, it was Boston over Dallas, 107-89. We've got to wait until Sunday for Game 2. It's that long wait that led to the performance of Game 1 that you take issue with. And Barkley also took issue with the NBA Finals, but it started before tip-off, is what he told Dan.
I'm not going to lie. I love Danny Hurley. This has nothing to do with Danny Hurley. And good luck with him if he goes to the Lakers. But I was so pissed with Game 1 of the Finals and Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals coming on. For them to spend the first hour talking about what if Danny Hurley goes to the Lakers, I was so pissed yesterday. I had to turn my TV off. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, this is how stupid they are. I like, what? Y'all got the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals, and y'all talk about a team that's irrelevant. And I'm like, that whoever's doing that programming got to be the stupidest, most bonehead people in the world. I'm like, no, if he goes, we'll talk about it. But to just go on there and blow air for an hour and then say, oh, by the way, we got Game 1 of the Finals coming up tonight. I was like, who in the hell is running their programming over there? I was like, if he okay, there's nothing but speculation. Okay, but you got Game 1 of the Finals and you got Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, which I'm really pumped about because, man, you got Florida, who lost in the finals last year, and you got a whole country of people, and you got those games as a network. And you spent the whole time talking about what if Danny Hurley goes to the Lakers. I'm like, what kind of idiots are running this network? I said, that was crazy. Like I say, I love Danny Hurley. I love his family. I love his story. I love him because he's a basketball purist. But I just thought it was so stupid of ESPN yesterday. It's like, wait a minute, y'all got the biggest game of the NBA season coming on tonight, and y'all spent the first hour talking about if Danny Hurley goes to the Lakers. I was like, come on, man.
Full interview, a lengthy interview there. It was great. Available on YouTube through the OutKick page. Just search out for Dan's show there, Don't At Me. Plus, you can catch it at outkick.com/shows. Chad, they're going to devote a ton of time to the national topic. I didn't watch the pregame coverage of the NBA Finals. Quite frankly, we didn't even discuss the NBA Finals yesterday on the show. That's how out of sight, out of mind it's been because of the lengthy layoff. But while they're leading up to Game 1, trying to build hype behind a series where you want the audience, but quite frankly, with Boston and Dallas, they're talking about Boston and Los Angeles with the Lakers and playing up the LeBron storyline, of course, the Dan Hurley storyline, which is big. But Barkley said he had to turn it off because it was so overboard with the coverage and opinion.
Well, and so typically with time away from something, it builds anticipation.
Yes.
We love football season for that reason, hon. We get a month out, then you and I start getting pumped up, right? Start to get a little bit of a tingle as you get into August, getting ready for college football and NFL to start. That first week of college football, going into Labor Day weekend, boy, you start to get excited. Hey, tomorrow night on Thursday, we're going to have college football games to watch. Now, that's off-season, throughout. It's the longest off-season in sports.
83 days.
To get back to the season.
83 days until kickoff.
Thank you. 83 days. I'm going to be excited for all 83 of those days. But point being, that's an extreme example because football has the shortest season and the longest off-season, and it's the most popular sport in America. So it builds that level of anticipation where the opening weekend of college football to get to high-level football again is a national holiday for me and so many others. When you go mid-playoff run and you take 10 days off for the Boston Celtics, that's how long they had off, and 7 days off for the Dallas Mavericks to get ready for the NBA Finals, the pinnacle of your sport, there needs to be more anticipation than that we saw last night. And here's what else needs to happen for the NBA. They need a better game. And I know they can't control that, but that was a snooze fest of a game. Credit the Boston Celtics for playing lockdown defense and holding them to 89 points, the Mavs. But that was a very uninteresting game pretty much throughout. The Mavs got it to 8, I think, in the third quarter after being down 27 or 29 at one point.
That's when I flipped over and they were making a run. And
Close as they got.
And then it quickly went back to 20.
Then it was 16, then it was 20, and then, of course, the Celtics win easily. But you got to do a better job if you're going to set out a predetermined specific day for the finals to start. Knowing that there's a high probability you're going to have a long layoff for both teams, you really need to be sure that you are a sport worthy of anticipation. We're ready for McGregor-Chandler. There's anticipation about that fight night. There's anticipation for that fight. And when we get to the day of the fight, there's going to be excitement for it. I didn't feel any excitement for the NBA Finals yesterday, and ESPN sure as hell did not do a good job of building anticipation for the start of the NBA Finals. Now, I would disagree with Charles Barkley on talking about the Lakers because they're irrelevant. They're never irrelevant in the NBA, and especially on a day where the Dan Hurley news drops. Now, would it have been better for the NBA if that news dropped 2 days before or 3 days before during that downtime and it was all talked out by then? Sure. But it had dropped that day, so it was fresh. Now, they spent too much time on it, but you have to address it. You have to spend time with it. Here's my big takeaway from ESPN's coverage of the NBA Finals last night. I don't think their studio crew is all that good together, and they had a 5-person desk at halftime. And Josh Hart of the New York Knicks, which, by the way, if you want to combat the idea that ESPN is all about the Knicks, one way to do it is to bring in Josh Hart, a guy who, of the stars of the NBA you could have gotten, is pretty far down the list to go get that Knicks player. And I thought he was fine. I thought his on-screen presence was okay. He did a decent job being his first time at it. But here's where ESPN failed. They failed in their pregame show, sure. At halftime, Hutton, they had 5 people on their desk. 5 people. Those 5 people had a grand total of 1 minute and 20 seconds of on-air time. Josh Hart spent 10 seconds talking at halftime.
Total.
They teased, Josh Hart's going to tell you how to stop the Celtics or how to combat the Celtics when we come back. It was a 20-second segment.
Rebound.
He got 10 seconds. 10 seconds, they went back to a break. 12 minutes of commercials during halftime. 1 minute 20 of a halftime show for their studio, their studio setup desk.
That's all it was?
They're live at the NBA Finals. 1 minute, 20 seconds. Awful announcing did the breakdown. You could go watch all 1 minute, 20 seconds spliced together that they did. Josh Hart had a comical 20-second segment where Malika Andrews, I believe, threw it to him. She talked for 10. He talked for 10. They went back to break. That was bad. I felt like they didn't know how long halftime was. Like when you watch it all cobbled together, it feels like miscommunication on how much time they had.
Man, they've got a lot of they have a lot of ad sales though, apparently.
Yeah.
Built
That's
into
good news for Disney.
I guess, yeah. They've got the Stanley Cup final coming up as well. You know, as Barkley pointed out, that's going to be on ABC. They're staggering both. And so we have game 1 last night.
I just thought the game 2 was not good.
Game 2 is Sunday. No travel involved. Game 2 Sunday in Boston. Wednesday, Friday, Monday is the remaining schedule. Monday, of course, if necessary. And then Thursday, Sunday would be 6 and 7, game 6 and 7. So it's game 2 Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, Thursday, Sunday. So they stretch it out over, 2 weeks in what could be easily done in a week and a half. Easily. But I understand that the TV network and the battle of the league where you want to make sure that your media partner's happy. And it just so happens that ESPN and ABC, they have both the Stanley Cup final and the NBA and the NBA finals. But, I mean, this has been going on for years where they stretch this out. And they schedule game 1 where it is, hoping, praying that their conference finals go 7 games, and sometimes they go 4. More often than not.
Is Friday night, I guess Friday night's better than Saturday night or Saturday afternoon for an NBA Finals game?
Unless that's when they're going to have the Stanley Cup final on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how they determine all that.
We typically know, like, by our own viewing habits, what nights are better for sports television, all that.
Yep. in the summer.
I'm hard-pressed to understand how Friday night NBA Finals game is better than a Saturday late afternoon game. Like, if you had an NBA Finals game tip when the Kentucky Derby starts at like 5:07 p.m.
Yeah, 5. Yeah,
on a Saturday evening.
5:07 exact.
5:07 tip-off.
Okay.
Not 5:09,
Okay.
not 5:11, not 5:05.
Right.
5:07 p.m.
Got
tip-off.
it.
Follow me here, Hutton.
Okay.
I do feel like that would be better than Friday night. I understand like Thursday, Sunday.
What about face-off?
Thursday's a good TV night. Sunday evening is a good TV night.
What about Hockey Night in Canada, which is what's going to happen with the NHL and the Stanley Cup?
I don't think it matters in the U.S. I think you could start that thing Wednesday morning at 3:30 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean,
play this game as if it's the Super Bowl in London.
Right. Remember when the Olympics were in Korea
Yes.
and all the start times, and we're trying not to get like spoiled everything?
Spoilers, yeah.
You could start in Korean times right now
And we
in
wouldn't know the
America,
result.
and no one cares.
We wouldn't know the result.
Yeah, the Stanley Cup. Now, in Canada, people care about Edmonton.
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
going to watch that. But in the States,
Chad,
it doesn't matter.
What you're saying is at least I tuned in last night to the final, game one, when it mattered, when Dallas actually made their run. Before
Where it got a little bit
Porzingis
interesting.
continued to go off again.
Yeah.
With all of it. Again, full interview with Charles Barkley, who was on Don't At Me with Dan Dakich, available now, including discussion about Caitlin Clark, and it poured over to the national headlines of how this has all been covered and how Pat McAfee covered the Caitlin Clark saga and the then apology.
What do you think of McAfee's comments about it and all the fallout from that?
Yeah, he crossed the line. I'm glad he apologized. I'm glad he apologized quickly. I think sometimes, we've all crossed the line. I've crossed the line because, when you're on live TV, you say stuff sometimes. But I'm a big McAfee fan. Hey, I'm a big McAfee fan. And all you can do is apologize and go forward. I thought he handled it as well as he could. But like I say, man, I've screwed up many times on live television. You just apologize, and that's all you can do. He got caught up in the moment because it's a really unfortunate thing to have to talk about. We should be talking about, hey, this is a great time to be in the WNBA. Viewership is up. Everybody going to start making more money. They put more ladies in commercials. This is a great time, but we're not even talking about that. And people are getting mad and frustrated. And I understand it. Because, I want to talk about the great things about the WNBA. I don't want to come on here and talk about pettiness and jealousy and race. Come on, man. Because what happens is every fool on television who has a keyboard has an opinion now. And most people don't. Judge Joe Brown, somebody I really admire, he always talk about clean hands. The one thing I'm very good at, Dan, anytime I'm on television on a show like yours, I'm not going to have an agenda. And we have too many people on television and radio now who have an agenda. They're trying to get clicks. And anytime you have an agenda, you're trying to get clicks, you're going to say something just for that reason. It's not your honest, fair opinion.
Barkley gets clicks because it is the honest, fair opinion.
Yeah.
And
because he's a great opinionist and he does not go into anything with an agenda. He just speaks his mind.
He's not going to read from a prompter or have someone hand him a script.
Yeah, there's no talking points with Charles Barkley, which I appreciate.
Same with Pat McAfee. Same with Pat McAfee, who continues to just speak his mind on his show. And ESPN, as I've said earlier this week, if he says that down a hallway in Bristol, there's a new example in a sexual harassment video that you have to watch annually with the company, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, says it on his show, and there's his own apology, and that's it. You move on. Because what are you going to do to the guy that called out his boss and you did nothing about it? Instead of telling Williamson to peace out.
I disagree with Barkley on, you just apologize and move on with everything. I would not have apologized to the public if I were Pat McAfee. If he felt... Now, but I'll say this for McAfee, and this is where I respect and appreciate. I'm a McAfee fan just like Charles Barkley is for this reason. I think he legitimately felt he needed to clarify and apologize, so he did it. That did not feel forced to me.
No.
There was no one at ESPN making him do it.
His tweet, not statement, his tweet or post on X. And I've said earlier this week too, Jeff, he did this back during the College Game Day weekly appearance where he didn't like the response he was getting on social media. And so he sent out a post saying, like, I'll step down and I'll move on, and maybe this audience isn't for me because this is one of the top programs, the tentpole programs that ESPN has, and maybe it's just not the audience that I'm built to speak to. And he responded to that social media response the same way I think he responded here with this statement that he put out earlier this week.
Yeah, and he said, I shouldn't have used it in any context, even though we were talking about race being an element in all of this in our discussion. I thought he did a fine job clarifying his intention and the whole purpose of the bit they were doing.
Yeah.
When he said it, when he talked about it, it did not offend me. Again, if I said something like that, and Pat McAfee is in Indianapolis, where Caitlin Clark lives.
She accepted the apology.
I'm just spitballing here. It would be very easy to get with Pat McAfee's people if Caitlin was pissed about it, right? Or anyone in Caitlin's family or her clique was pissed off about it. And if that was me in McAfee's chair, and I feel like, what, I really missed the point on this, and I missed the boat with my attempted humor, I should apologize. I would apologize too. In those circumstances, if I feel like it crossed a line with her specifically, I don't think there's a reason to apologize to anyone else who may or may not have been offended by it. If you feel like you got at her family or her with it, then you can apologize, and I'm fine with it. But what we like about it, Hutton, no teleprompter, right? No talking points. McAfee apologized because McAfee felt he should apologize.
Well, again,
that's admirable.
Is the social media mob after Eminem and his new album?
I mean, if they are, I'm not.
Well, you see what I'm saying.
I'm not following those Twitter streets the way that I once was.
Yeah,
I'm not on rap Twitter.
You don't have
all that much, so I don't know what the outcry is about it.
What was the name of the women's group that demanded more than just the apology?
Oh my gosh, Ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet.
Thank you, Ultraviolet.
Is Ultraviolet, bearing down on Marshall Mathers?
Well, look, all they do at Ultraviolet is issue statements, so there's got to be a statement released at some point. I'll find it if so.
Yeah, they're insulted and they're offended.
Good job by Dan on that interview with Barkley. I love Barkley I've seen Awful Announcing cover that interview and other outlets as well. I do love Barkley that when he goes on a show, like he does a lot of interviews, right? But when he goes on a show, he never half-asses it.
Oh, when he says
when he says I'm going to do something, I don't go into it with an agenda. And I believe that. It's not like I'm trying to sell something or I'm doing this.
First answer.
I've agreed to go on the show because I have agreed to listen to your questions and have a discussion and give you my unfiltered, honest opinion on it. And I like that. The man shows up to perform at all times.
And you mentioned the honest opinion. I mean, first answer, he's calling out, again, the company with Time Warner and TNT for not keeping employees abreast of what's going on with the negotiation.
Well, he's also calling out a possible future employer that's going to be, trying to hire him in ESPN, and how stupid their programmers are for spending so much time on Hurley and the Lakers last night.
Yeah.
Which I also admire.
Not just
that
hiring.
he doesn't care. He's not trying to petition them for a job.
Pay for his product the way that McAfee's being paid for his product. If it goes through his production company. But he said, he's more worried about the 200-plus employees that could be going into a lame duck season next year on TNT and with inside the NBA. And what happens to that show? He goes, I'm not worried about the four of us on set. I'm worried about the 200-plus behind the scenes that their livelihood is tied to this program and what could come of it. To the point where Adam Silver even sent out an apology and apologized to that show about the uncertainty and about the length of this negotiation where the commissioner of the NBA is saying, hey, this is a process. We go back and forth. We want every side wants leverage. You have to listen to all sides, and we hope to have this. What was the quote? Wrapped up in the relative near term is what Adam Silver said about this television.
Adam Silver said a lot last night in his press conference.
Wrapped up
asked about Caitlin Clark too.
The relative near term.
Charles Barkley ranks high. Hutton, you tweeted out the audio. Colin with a good job posting the discussion of Kim Mathers.
Yes.
And how high she ranks on the probability chart of stabbing someone at a bowling alley.
Someone you don't want to
or in a bowling
confront
alley.
at a bowling alley.
I would put Charles Barkley towards the top of the list of want to have a drink with this person.
Yeah.
You can start going down the list of actors, comedians, celebrities, sports people. I want to drink with this person. I want to sit down and have cocktails with them or a beer and just let it rip. Charles Barkley's close to the top of that list. And him fighting for the employees of that show, all the production crew and camera people and everything else, that puts him even higher on that list for me.
Well, and
that he's thinking about them and not himself.
And think, too, like...
and he said morale is low. Remember what he's asked about? He said morale is very low around here.
Because he's getting texts.
Yeah.
He's getting questions anytime he goes into the studio about, hey, what are you hearing? What's going to happen here? People that he's seen on a daily basis for years, or a weekly basis for years. Because they can't get answers elsewhere.
Yeah.
So...
and they all... That's cool, though, that he is... My point is, he's Charles Barkley. He's a huge star and celebrity.
He's personal.
But it's not like his crew feels so distant from him that they can't go talk to him and ask him if he knows more than they do.
Yeah.
I appreciate that part about it.
He's not walking into a restaurant and trying to buy every seat and buy dinner so everyone will leave early. That way Kelsey and Taylor Swift did.
Yeah.
In KC.
I love that about Barkley. And Adam Silver had a lot to say last night at his press conference also.
Yeah, so...
for the NBA. And by the way, getting back to my original point about the lack of anticipation for the NBA Finals, the fact that I'm more interested in what Adam Silver has to say about Caitlin Clark drama for the WNBA at the NBA Commissioner's press conference for the NBA Finals.
The annual presser.
Shows that there is a lack of anticipation for these finals.
Well, he's exploring expansion for the NBA. And what's next on the agenda for, Chad, the association?
Bill Coney, can you tell me when the media deals will be over? The expansion process. I mean, in all seriousness, that I meant what I said. We do need to finish up. I think I said a few years ago, collective bargaining agreement, new media deals, then we would turn to expansion. So we got part one done clearly, and thank you to the Players Association. We're very happy. I think both sides are with our new collective bargaining agreement. Media deals, it's been a long process, it's ongoing, and we hope to wrap it up, in the relative near term. And then we will turn to expansion. But by turning to expansion, it doesn't mean that we're going to announce that now we're ready to add teams. It means that there'll be a committee of NBA governors that will focus on it. There's clearly markets out there that are very interested, and we'll run through a process. But I actually am looking forward to that. I think that the league, it's not preordained that we will expand this time, but I know there's an enormous amount of interest out there. And to me, yes, there are wealthy individuals, institutions that would like to invest and buy NBA teams, but I think it's on the league to look holistically, because there's the dilution, of course. Let's just say we're expanded by 2 teams. What does that mean for talent? I feel great about where the talent is right now in the league, but if those players have to come from somewhere, if you add 2 teams, how does it work geographically? What will it mean for growing the game? At some point, we'd like to look outside the United States in addition to Canada. This may not be the right moment to do that, but I'm thinking long term as well. So I'm actually very excited about turning to that process, but first we just got to be finished with the media deals.
So there's Adam Silver on expansion. Chad, I looked up just we know Vegas is getting one. They need one market. The top 2 that come to mind, Seattle and Nashville. Those seem to be the targets for the NBA. Now, beyond that, he mentions, outside of the U.S., that makes sense because here are the rest of them. Columbus, St. Louis, Louisville, San Diego. Those are the next markets on the list just by the consensus if you just Google NBA expansion. Outside of one in potentially Mexico or Canada.
Yeah. And even Nashville, I don't...
Nashville's still a ways off in terms of how soon do they want Vegas in the mix?
Yeah.
To me, that's Seattle.
Well, and it's kind of in an odd spot, in between Memphis, Atlanta Hawks.
Sure.
NHL team also in Nashville would be a little bit difficult. But I don't look at the league and think outside of Vegas there's a big need for expansion.
But they want to add one more and then look more, I think, international, the way the NFL is trending.
Yeah, and we'll get into what Adam Silver had to say about Caitlin Clark a little bit later, too. Spoiler, he doesn't think all the attention is a bad thing. for the WNBA, given the ratings right now and the
Certainly
talk
not.
about the league.
Certainly
So,
not.